Now I'm going to cover Miller's Supply and Demand Homework, Chapter 3 homework that I've assigned. We started with number 3. Consider the market for cable-based internet access service, which is a normal good. Explain whether the following events would cause an increase or a decrease in demand, or an increase or a decrease in the quantity demanded. And I would add to this, for any homework assignment, you should be writing down why. Because if all you write is the word increase, and if you think studying that will help you understand, I think when the test comes, you'll be disappointed. So on your homework, you should be noting not just whether it increases or decreases demand, but why. Does it do it? So when you study it, you have that in front of you. That's what I would do, but let's see what happens. Firms providing wireless, and it's so given away here because in parentheses he says an alternative to cable internet access services reduce their prices. Firms providing wireless, an alternative to cable internet reduce service internet. Let me try a third time. Firms providing wireless, an alternative to cable internet access services reduce their prices. Well, I like to list them in categories of these pockets, so it makes 9, but different texts do different things. This will work. This wouldn't matter for this particular one. This is the same in every textbook. Of these determinants, we already have that we're talking about demand because that's how this question is set up. So we know it's on this column, so it's of these 5. An alternative to the product. That's a related good. There are 2 kinds of related goods. Complements and substitutes. Alternative and substitute are synonyms. They're words with the same meaning. So this was given to us. The alternative or the substitute became, let me make sure I'm correct in my direction here, cheaper. If an alternative becomes cheaper or a substitute becomes cheaper, what's that going to do to the demand for this good? It's going to reduce demand for this good because people will switch over to the other thing when it's cheaper, and they'll switch away from this thing. Or people that would have been coming to this thing, sometimes this could be expressed in terms of growth. People that would have been coming to this thing won't come to this thing at the same rate as might have been expected. So that would decrease demand because of the substitutes, of the effective substitutes. Letter B. Firms providing cable-based internet access services reduce their prices. If you're not really reading or really digging into this, a lot of people would have on their paper, this decreases demand. That is I would say, the number 1, maybe number 2 pitfall in understanding supply and demand. And it's sad because I was just watching CNBC a few minutes ago. They would also say, the commentators would say, oh, this decreases demand. But the difference is they've already made it through economics classes. So they can get away with saying something sloppy. When you're trying to learn it, you cannot, because it has a different meaning. This does not decrease demand for cable-based internet services. It decreases the quantity demanded. And that's a huge difference, because a decrease in demand looks like this. There's your demand curve. This is a decrease in demand. That's what a decrease in demand looks like. So if you say a decrease in demand, this is what you're saying. And that has implications for price and quantity, which we'll get to when we do the next question. But when we talk about the price changing for the good, that's something different. Now we're talking about the price, was it increasing? Reduce their prices. They're reducing their price. That means along the demand curve, the quantity demanded has risen. So this is a picture of a change in the quantity demanded, or a decrease in the quantity demanded. This is a picture of a decrease in demand. There's a big difference in terms of how this is going to affect things. This is actually a result, and this will be a cause of change. So the answer to the question was it's an increase because of the direction. The answer to B is it's an increase in the quantity demanded. And the reason why is because that's movement along the demand curve. Letter C. There's a decrease in the incomes earned by consumers of cable-based internet access services. So people who buy this service aren't feeling rich anymore. Could be that the economy shut down for coronavirus. I don't think this effect would pan out, or did pan out. In fact, I'm quite sure cable internet subscriptions went up when that happened. Perhaps it could happen with a decline in the housing market where people feel like their internet is down, their income is down. It often does happen with major drops in the stock market. People feel broke, they reduce consumption of, and it says back in the question, normal goods. So this is our income determinant of our determinants of demand. This is income. Okay, and incomes are down. If this is a normal good, it's going to decrease demand for the normal good. That's what a normal good means. What's the alternative to a normal good? Quick check yourself, see if you know. It's an inferior good. And what does that mean? An inferior good is something that people shift into when they feel broke. So if this were an inferior good, demand would be rising with falling incomes. But it's not. Given the question, it's not. So demand falls. That was C. Letter D, consumers' tastes shift away from using wireless internet access services in favor of cable-based internet access services. Consumers' tastes shift away from using wireless internet access services in favor of cable-based internet access services. And we're talking about which of these two goods? Wireless or cable? We're talking about cable. And it tells us people are shifting in favor to this thing that we're talking about. So we're talking about an increase in demand. And the determinant that we must be talking about, it's given word, the word is in the question, it's taste. People's taste have shifted to, at least we're inferring that because their taste away from the substitute anyway, but their taste has shifted to this good, cable internet. So the next one, I'm going to go ahead and fit in right in the same video. In the market for portable power banks, a normal good, explain whether the following events would cause an increase or decrease in demand or an increase and decrease in the quantity demanded, same as we just did, but for a different good. Also explain, I would say show, because that's the only way you're really going to get this. So I'm going to show, okay? Show what happens or explain what happens when the equilibrium quantity to the equilibrium quantity and the market clearing price. Okay, so let's make it clear what we're talking about. This is unusual that I have the opportunity to do this, but I have like visual aids for this. I don't know why, but I guess my wife picked this up somewhere. This appeared on my desk just this morning, and that's cool. So here is in the package the product that they're talking about here. They're talking about these things. Here's one, older one I have, plugs into the wall. Plug your phone into this thing somewhere. Oh, this one's semi-waterproof, which is funny. Plug your phone in, USB ports there. You can charge it by a computer or from a USB plug, and then you plug it into your phone, and it would charge your phone on the go. Here's a cheap one from Walmart. I have that rubber band on there because this fitting isn't very good, and I have to like jam the cord in to make it make contact. But you know, when the zombie apocalypse happens, I'm going to be glad I had even this backup. So you know, can't be too careful. You want to keep these things around, right? Don't want to throw that away. But this is the product that we're talking about. The first of these events I find fairly humorous because this cheap one from Walmart I think was 15 or 20 bucks. This one I actually found, and this was something that I guess my wife must have been given somewhere. So it's not terribly expensive either, I'm assuming. I don't know why it appeared on my desk today, but Here's the first one. We have to use our imaginations a little bit to understand this. Okay. There is an increase in the price of carrying cases for portable power banks. So I guess when the author wrote this and was trying to use new fancy gadgets to be hip, the thinking was these things are so fancy that people will have carrying cases for them. Ha ha ha. No, they don't. If we lose these, like this one was lost on the beach, we don't even probably, we may go back and look for it if it's convenient, and that's about it. We don't get carrying cases for our portable power banks. But when the question was written, I guess the author or the graduate students tasked with doing this work for him thought maybe people would. So let's proceed as if people gave a hoot about their chargers, their external chargers, so much so that carrying cases were important to them. If that were true, which it turns out it's not, but if it were true, of our determinants of demand, what are we talking about? We're talking about a complement. And the complement got more expensive. If the complement to something gets more expensive, how does that make me feel about buying it? Less good about buying it, right? So going back to our images here, we're talking about a decrease in demand, okay? But let me approach this a different way. We're asked what is going to happen to price and quantity given the event, all right? Well, the way I handle these questions, when I was an undergrad, I wanted to learn how to do things in steps. So here we go in steps. This is what I would do. I would set up my framework. I'm drawing my Q on the horizontal axis, my P on the vertical axis. I draw in my supply curve. You need both to make these predictions to price and quantity. I draw in my demand curve and make a note of where equilibrium is. So I have my framework set up, and we're talking about power banks. I'm just going to put a PB up top there, external power banks. So this is my framework, so that's step one. Okay, and everything is labeled. Don't try to wing it. You're trying to learn something here. Why would you not write what the thing is? It's not going to help you. Now, we already said demand is going to fall for the portable power bank. So my next step, I'm going out of order of my own steps. The next step is to say, what of the 9 determinants does the event we're reading about sound like? Well, we've already established it's the complement, and it's under demand. The complement got more expensive. That makes buying this good less tempting. So we're talking about a decrease in demand. Then, once you've established that, draw it in. And it need not be perfect. Make some kind of indication of what's old and what's new. And then, here's the key. Don't forget to do this, because this is what we're asked. Trace it back to the axes. Show what happens. Price should go down. Quantity purchased should go down. Quantity bought and sold will fall. That's what we should expect. So that is A, not just explained, but shown. Letter B, there's a decrease in the price of devices used to charge portable power banks. So the little cords, the USB cords, is what we'll be talking about here. So I'm going to label the one I just drew A. I'm going to label it B. I'm going to set up the framework quick as I can. Power banks is what we're talking about. There's my framework. A charger for these power banks got cheaper. A charger for these power banks, the USB cords, are related goods as well. They're also complements, but these got cheaper. So if it's cheaper to charge your portable power bank, of course we could also pretend that it's not going to have an effect on the phones, but anyway, if it's cheaper to charge your portable power bank, it's under demand, and it's going to make demand for this thing go up, at least theoretically. And I'm assuming now that this is not something bundled with it in the package. That would make it input prices, because I'm assuming that because we're talking about demand given the question. So we're talking about something that you buy separately. And that raises demand. It's upward pressure on the price. And more of it will be bought and sold. because of the cheaper charging accessory. So that's what we could expect and why. And a whole lot more. Then letter C, there's an increase in the number of consumers of portable power banks. Okay, of these determinants, even if we look at the ones for supply, because eventually that's what you have to do. You have to be able to do supply and demand, okay? Number of consumers of the goods sounds like what? Number of buyers. Under demand, it's an increase in the number of buyers, right? Increase in the number of consumers, yes. It's this picture all over again. It's going to increase demand, push up on the price, and out on the quantity. Letter D, a booming economy increases the income of the typical buyer of portable power banks. Well, make sure we know, is this a normal good or an inferior good? It was given in the question, it's a normal good. So if people feel richer, and this is a normal good, talking about income, right? It's under demand. They feel richer. Is it going to increase or decrease demand? It's a normal good. It's going to increase demand. It's this picture again. It's going to increase demand, push up on the price, and out on the quantity. I didn't draw an arrow down there. I just used the notation, but that's pushing out on the quantity. Letter E, consumers of portable power banks anticipate that the price of this good will decline in the future. So anticipate. That word has a synonym. Expect. And we're talking about demand. He also, in the text here, says consumers are anticipating. So even if we didn't know it was going to be demand, given the question, the way it was in the introduction to the question, saying consumers expect this means we're talking about demand. So here we are with expectations. We're talking about demand. If you expect something to be cheaper or anticipate something to be cheaper in the future, do you rush out and purchase it now? No. You hold off. You say, I'll wait till I really, really need it, or it's cheaper because I think it's getting cheaper. That's what I do. That's what rational people ought to do. And so we're talking about this picture. Demand will fall now because of the expectation of it being cheaper in the future. So that would push down on the price now and down on the quantity. So that completes numbers 3 and 4. So there'll be a sequel. Let's hope it's as good as the original.